Want to do that in? How did I start? How did it last time?
Yep.
We're moving. Stupid.
All right, it's 7:02. We'll go ahead and call to order the March 6th. How did that happen? Regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Education to order. If you would, take a moment, silence your cell phones, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Diagana, would you please call roll?
Monica Johnson is excused. Amanda Proctor. Here. Nate Susano.
Here.
Amy Musgrave. Here. Michael Whale.
Here. We need to approve this evening's agenda.
Change on consent?
We'll do that at consent.
Otherwise, we're good.
Okay.
Move that we approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Vice President Sassano, a second by Director Proctor to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have an agenda. Do we have citizen comment, any citizens on agenda items?
No citizen comment on agenda items.
Okay. We will move on to staff and student celebrations and recognitions. Superintendent, do you want to kick us off?
I'd love to, President Wales. The several things going on since I think we were here last time. Chance to go out and celebrate transportation with Love the Bus Month. We were able to break some bread with our bus drivers and celebrate them and the work they do to take our students to and from school every day, setting up the day, and being the last person that those individuals see or our students see on the way home. And I think they were super appreciative of the work and us, our appreciation. I think Monica probably would have shared the same thing, and she had a chance to join us there. Just a reminder for all, we still have a girls basketball team that's playing. They play tomorrow at 2:15 down at the Coliseum. Lots of March is Inclusion Month, and lots of individuals, both this building and across the district, purchased red shirts in support of Special Olympics, which is one of the things that this district does to support students that might learn differently or have some special needs. So as we think about today, our early childhood, I think, also now is part of Special Olympics, which is new and kind of a cool program for us to be involved in at that level. They also had a chance to spend some time out in our early childhood center at earlier this week. Last week I running together, but I think it was earlier this week. And it's his birthday, I think Monday was. And so all week they're celebrating Dr. Seuss. And today you saw staff members all with shirts on there that all said, "I'll support autism here or there. I'll support autism everywhere." But you also had us to see just the way they operate their classroom. There was a classroom of special needs students, 7 students, 6 adults, just working hard on helping the students with some of their special needs. But then the last half hour, 40 minutes we were there, the 2 classes merged. Their play at the end of the day was completely included. The teachers it was magical to watch how they interacted with the students, moved in and out and around, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty neat to see. And then the last thing I want to do with the board today is mostly to let our students do the talking around my celebration. A video was made with the help of Amanda Turnbill from Milliken Middle School, And we've got a few minutes that I'd just love for us to celebrate with our students as they talk about what it means for them.
Hang on, hang on. Wait a minute.
Who's that handsome looking devil there? The one in the middle.
So why don't I have any sound over here?
That's kind of coming out.
Let's turn it up over here. Are you hearing the above you chat at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's such a cold day we have now.
We also posted that on our Facebook page too. It's like the video that we posted on it.
Don't feel bad. That's how every presentation is, right? It works good, and then it's time to go live, and it's like that didn't work.
Let's try this. I don't even know what's happening now.
Whatever it is, we can hear it.
I think you're right. I think you're probably straight.
I think you and Tammy should just act it out.
When I connect it, the video goes away.
Can you email it? Can you email it to us?
It's on the Facebook.
So it is, okay.
Yeah, they
You
just
said that,
posted
I'm
it. Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay. They just posted it this afternoon.
It's really a neat video.
Yeah.
It's 5 minutes and Amanda Turnbull did it and lots of kids are in it.
Oh, why don't you share your computer? Do you have the video? It's on the iPad. I think it's trying to connect to like, I don't know.
Scott cranked the volume, so we might all get Michael J. Fox here.
It didn't end up any louder than it started.
We don't know what's wrong with it. Sorry, guys.
I don't know what
We
this-
tried all of the options.
I can show up for my career. I can show up for my career. What is your name? Hi, McKinnon. How are you? Can I ask you a question? What is something that's funny you like? You like Miss Rhea? Say nine. Big cracker, big cheese, peanut butter cracker. Ooh, potato chips. On the potato chips. Me too, I just remember. I don't remember. That's right. I can show up for my school. I can show up for my school. I can show up for my school. When you discuss it, you're doing something. Don't just do it. No. I can show up for my community. I can show up for my community.
Check out the suggestions from our monthly wrestling team.
I'll take a scanner for emotion. You are the stars and the world is watching you. By your presence, you send a message to every village, every city, every nation. A message of hope, a message of victory.
Thanks, Tammy, and I encourage you to take a look at that online, and I think, just for us to see that today from the middle school, it's pretty cool to see how many student voices represented, and working on belonging in that building is partly why it's recognized, so encourage you to take a look, and that concludes my celebrations for tonight, President Russ.
Okay. Any other celebrations?
Do you want to talk about the host estate?
Yes, somebody please
I think
do.
Monica,
I know,
for Monica
right? She
Chile,
should
all over the host estate.
Yeah.
I can't remember who did any of it though.
There were a couple, we had several that did really well. Our plan is to honor the HOSA winners and those that took second and third place. And for all the board members, part of the reason we decided to do that is we're working on, so we have the coins that we gave to those that are state champions. But we also have, we believe we'll have FBLA members that'll be state champs and some that will be not state champs but are there. HOSA was the same way, wrestling was the same way. And so we're working on a secondary coin from the board that will be honoring their accomplishments or achievements. And so that day should be here any day. So we made a decision not to have celebrations of our athletes and until the April meeting. We'll do an April meeting, a May meeting, and probably a June celebration with students.
Okay. MMS, I don't know all the details, but I know that they did FBLA, state FBLA, and sounds like I have a couple anyways, kids that are going to be going to nationals.
Nice.
Don't know the details, so maybe by the April meeting we'll know more too. So, all right, anything else? Move on to reports and comments from board members.
All right, I'll start. I've only done a few things. Did the tour of MES, which is fantastic. It's the first time I've been in that building since I'm under construction. Coming along really nicely. I do like that each grade has a hallway with the electives in the middle. It was a great plan from the beginning, but when you're in the building, you can feel it. It feels really good. And so it's nice that that building too doesn't feel like the old RHS. It's becoming its own, which I think will be really good for that as well, to not be the same. And the other thing I've done is I will attend the brunch for the Johnstown Downtown Development Authority, host at RHS with a CT presentation. It's great to have those businesses in the building and in that program, but I think what was more exciting was the French toast, because I know you mentioned the French toast. That was the best thing that they made. The French is incredible. But beyond that, Ms. Gorson's passion really came through. And I think her thoughtfulness of doing the conversation starters on the tables was there as well. I think those are always good when you're having a mixed audience of people getting to each other, and just the small thoughtfulness of those touches, but just her passion throughout the whole thing. I think she could have probably just stood up there and talked all day. So I appreciate her passion for doing that, because I think it's passionate people who inspire others to step into things. And if we could, part of me is like, they should have recorded that, because if we could just hear that speech, I think we would have even more participation in the program than we already had. There's other people like Boulder who are jealous, but I think we can go even further because of the passion that's in there. So for me, that was one of the most exciting things of that presentation. I'm driving away trying to think, like, well, how did I even come into my career, and who got you here, and that type of thing. So I think Ms. Gorson will be that person for a lot of stuff in the future when we look back.
Yeah, she has a strong energy, and I can tell you, she brings that. She gave a presentation to the Workforce Development Boards Committee a couple months ago out at Southwest Weld Complex, and it had that same energy. And I mean, the people in attendance were super excited that we're still trying to have a meeting. They want to have one of the youth committee meetings at Roosevelt so they can actually see it's really that energy she brought to the presentation.
Yeah, it's almost like it's her superpower. It's her like power of attraction almost.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's really incredible to be someone when they're really in their superpower, and I think that's what she was.
Yeah.
I don't have any reports, but I just wanted to very quickly give some kudos to the Milliken Middle School staff. Seeing that video and just thinking about where that building was. How long has Aspen been principal there? 4 years, 5 years? That building has come a long way in culture for staff, for students. And I'm excited that is the staff that's going to open our new middle school in January. Yeah, in January. Sorry, make sure I'm timing right. When our oldest started middle school there, and I've told everybody this before, we've heard all the horror stories about how Milliken Middle School wasn't a good place to be and it wasn't good for students. And our daughter experienced none of that. Our youngest daughter is about to experience all the great things that MMS is doing. And I'm excited for that. That building's come a long way. So I just wanted to publicly say thank you to Principal Calvillo and her staff. and the teachers and staff at that building, because it is night and day different from where it was 4 or 5 years ago. So that's all.
Yeah.
I did this week. I went and watched our Winter Guard. They had performance. Where were we at? Brighton. Great group of kids. It's fun to watch. Danielle's doing a great job with them. I like all the different activities we have. I did the athletic stuff, so looking at the artsy stuff is new for me, but really fun to watch.
Sure.
I watch them improve every week, and their camaraderie and their friendships they have there is really, really great. Another one of the great things our school district does for our kids. It's neat. If you ever get a chance to watch them, they're really fun. They're fun to hang out with too.
Well, it should come as no surprise that I have relation to Danielle. She's my nephew's wife.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so we have to. I mean, we have to keep our eye on that.
Yeah. There's all sorts of fun drama. It's good for me. It's a growth experience.
Yeah, no, it's and all those things. I mean, we talk about the music program. You know, in a district our size, we should have probably a more robust music program at the high school level, and I think it's just a matter of stepping out and trying some new things. And Winter Guard and the Color Guard is one of those that, you know, when you get somebody again like Jennifer who can be the champion, the adult who can champion it, like this will follow in that. So
Fun to watch for sure.
well, I had the JDDA breakfast, and the whole thing was great, but yeah, that French toast casserole they do is just, Chad, you know, right? You've had it multiple times. It's good stuff. But it was so fun. It was so fun for me because I was going to have a conversation with Scott about one of the students that him and I are sitting with prior to anything. I mean, it's been on my mind for a couple weeks now about, we're always talking about ways to get, Scott and I anyways are talking about ways to get students involved and how as a district we can help them really take a serious step in the next direction or the level of their lives, be it helping them get started in business or go to college or whatever it is they want to do. And so we have one student who was there, and her and sister they've actually started a little marketing agency. And I had been meaning to sit down with Scott and say, hey, take a look at what Malia is doing, and maybe we bring her on board and she can help kind of be our the inside scoop, doing all of our social media from the inside. We sat down with her and she went into pitch mode. I mean, it was so awesome. Later that day, she emailed a proposal to the district for her services, and it was so fun just to reach out to her afterwards, and I just told her, I'm so proud of you. I said, because I was going to say something, but I said, and you totally ran with that. And I said, that was huge. So that breakfast was the best thing and that breakfast for me was seeing Malia really step up and do that. Scott and I mean, we're kind of dating now. I think it's getting serious. Yeah. We spent time together last week. We went to the CASB Legislative Conference, spent a little at the Capitol. You know, we didn't go with any agenda or to push anything. It was more just kind of what's going on, where everybody else is at. One of the things that came out of that, though, was, and that one of the work sessions we did was really about developing a legislative platform as a local school district. And what I'll do is I'm going to email you guys some questions that we can probably start working on at a work session. And I think more than you think, because I don't know that we do have any that we really want to take a strong stance on. But I think it's important that we do get some of that down on so that as we're watching legislation move to Capitol, and then we see that may be affecting the values that we have, that at least we have a cohesive reason to make objection or offer amendment and whatever like that. Nate is a legislative delegate. I'm on the legislative review committee, so we have connections with those groups, so we can be able to talk about any of those things. But like I said, I don't feel like we have anything pressing as a board or as a district legislatively, but there are some, I mean, we obviously have some concerns about, and it could be little like, I think one of the biggest ones that came up was just growth. You know, that's a big concern for districts. So how do we want to be able to keep our eye on legislation that may affect growth in our district? So then let's see, yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. Scott and I again, let's keep it serious, I'm funny. We met at the BOCES boardroom with our counterparts from Eaton, Windsor, and Kersey, and really just talked about things that districts our size are facing, neighbors, how we can work together on some things. There was the researcher from that the Well Trust is giving grants to do educational research. We talked a little bit about some of the stuff they're working on, asked them some questions on some of the routes they did. I thought it was a really good meeting. It's just it's kind of nice to be with your neighbors and talk about things that we all kind of understand and have concerns around. I was just going to add things from my personal life here. Last night at my Rotary Club meeting, we had Liz Barber. She's the executive director of the Dream Team. And Liz and I are on workforce development together, which is a presentation about Greeley Dream Team. And if you're not familiar with Greeley Dream Team, I'd encourage you to go look at what they're doing in District 6. Essentially, they're reaching out to a lower socioeconomic cohort of kids within District 6. They're also working with Kersey now. That's the first time they've come out of District 6. But they offer counseling services, and with counseling service, I'm talking about academic counseling. So they're kind of taking the load off of counselors in District 6. They're helping them with SAT prep, application prep, scholarship applications, plugging them into the community with opportunities, meeting people, getting to travel. I mean, there's she told this one story. She said some of these kids, they went to Denver and they came to an escalator and they all froze like, the elf. Had no idea, had never seen an escalator before, which is crazy to think, just in our neck of the woods that there are some people who are just that sheltered because of the situations. But such a really cool program, and so I'd just encourage you guys to look at what they're doing, and if there's ideas that we can bring back here. I asked her about that. I said, you ready to expand? And she's like, well, if you have money, well, we do that, because they basically are grant operated. One of the things I thought was really cool, though, they have worked out a system where they have essentially vouchers for college admission applications. So the students that they're working with do not have to pay those application fees, which I didn't realize was a thing.
That's cool.
Yeah, she was saying they're like $50 to $75 application, and they're waiving those for those students. Right.
What was the name of that?
It's Greeley Dream Team. One of the other cool things, in the past 7 years, they have 100% graduation rate with the students that they're working with, is huge. So the other thing, though, so today I mentioned earlier today that I had lunch with an old school buddy, and I've mentioned this in the past. Some may not have been with us when I've talked about this, but way back in the day when it was just Melican Elementary School and Ledford Elementary School, in second grade we always had a pen pal with second grader in the other school. So I was at Ledford, pen pal at MES, and that's the guy I met with today. We've just been good friends ever since second grade. So it was, and we talked about that today again. That we had pen pals. We'd write these letters back and forth, and then at the end of the year, we had at Parish Park and had a picnic. We got to finally our pen pal and play games with them, and so that was just such a time. So I thought that was
Good community building.
Yeah, and it was fun to just that here we are. 40-some years later, we're still meeting for lunch and having a celebration. So. Anything else? Okay, well, let's move on to the report from the superintendent's office.
I just have a couple I just add on. There were a couple standouts for me. The conference where I was with Michael last week, one of the panels that we had a chance to see was a panel of students. And the students all are participating in a couple different things.
Some of them were.
Well, yeah, some of them were involved, but what they were really talking about was engagement with our board, with their board. And a conversation I think we'll engage in here tonight is possibility of looking at student board members here in our district. And so it was interesting knowing the conversation was in front of us and how impactful the students that were talking to us felt like they were in their district, being able to represent their schools and the student voice at the board level, and how much they appreciated the opportunity they were given. So that was pretty powerful to listen to those individuals. A couple were from Harrison, which happens to be the same district that my superintendent mentor is from, and she is willing to work with us around how develop should the board decide they want to move in that direction. She advice on their process, and I know President Wales also done some work with Durango around how they do it as well. But it was fruitful to listen to the group. And then the second one I just want to add on to is the JDDA work-based learning, and how, one, yes, how impactful Ms. Morrison is in wanting to connect students. The work that we have provided, or the opportunities we've provided in this district for students at the middle school level to have career exploration, is different than you see most middle schools around the country. That's also true high school. But then it's changed dramatically when we students, we give them real authentic experiences in the building, and then we let them go explore or experience what it looks like in the work world. So that connection out beyond the schoolhouse walls is phenomenal. And this district, prior to me even arriving here, is working in that direction. And what we're looking forward to is expanding and really growing those experiences, because that's really when you blur the lines between learning and work, and not making people wait to work in difference until they're done with high school, but they can do it while they're in high school. And that's profound. And we're hearing that again yesterday with our peers from the other four schools, how special the experiences that are happening in this district are, and how different they are than most other schools. That's also true at the middle school level. When you look at what middle experiences are here, I think growing up in a middle school myself, the experiences they're creating that foster what's coming next at the high school are pretty amazing in the work-based learning kind of experience. So it's a testament to, I think, the vision of leaders that came before me, board members that came before me, and before some of you, that's put this district on this trajectory. And now it's walking right in front of us. It's pretty neat to watch. And you saw some evidence of that at the JDDA breakfast. Yes, Ms. Morrison talked, but really beyond her, the people carrying the morning were all students talking to adults and doing it in a business formal way. It was pretty neat to watch. So the last thing I guess I'll just add, and maybe it's just adding on just a little bit, is how excited I am for us to think about student voice in this room every other Wednesday night. I think it could be a real enhancement for us as a district. So I'm looking forward to the conversation we have later on this evening. And that's it, President Wales.
Okay, any questions? All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
We will move on to our consent agenda. I should have rehearsed this. So our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval by the board by a single motion. Most of the items listed under the consent agenda have gone through board review and recommendation. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to assure an extensive and thorough I would, at this point, like to pull 2 items from the consent agenda for a separate discussion and vote. If there's any others, any other member is allowed to do that at this time.
What two items do you want?
And so the 2 I would like to pull are, let me get to them, Joshua Gonzalez's new position and Cooper Myers' new position. And let's go ahead and discuss those first. I'm going to ask Mr. Superintendent Nielsen to do it. Yeah, I think it got really hot in here, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Tell me here that is.
Instantaneously, it got better.
Can I just ask one clarification? Do you want to approve the consent agenda minus those 2 or wait until discussion and approve the whole thing?
We can do it that way. I was going to do these 2 separate and then we could do the whole thing. But if you guys want,
You want to do those 2?
if somebody wants to make a
No,
motion
that's
to
fine.
approve with those 2 out.
That's fine. We can discuss them first.
Okay.
So the student employment plus Gonzalez and Cooper.
Yes. Yep.
So both of those 2, I mean, I'll just talk about them both. I think a movement for us in the district is, in some sense, in the work-based learning strand that we just talked about, is us as a district to look at where we can employ students to do work that we might have someone externally historically help us with. In this case, those were positions that were identified at the high school with the help of high school staff and Rebecca to try to identify. They've done a lot of work with our HR department and Michael to try to figure out how this all would work. And those 2 actually have gone through formal process. Jobs were posted. They went through some process to land on those 2 particular positions where we have Joshua, who's helped us with print production. I believe, and Chad, you may be able to help me with this, but they will, for that, be working on print production like the sign that we have up in the gym for all the people that have helped us out, but also print production, being able to use the equipment and being kind of the official person with some of the stuff we got donated from Otter Cares. But that would be the print production piece. And then Cooper Meyer, the Daktronics scoreboard, is a person working to learn to use the scoreboard we currently have outside, to be a student running that as opposed to having adults the only ones that know how to run it. Given conversation later tonight, we have the opportunity for more experiences when we have that one of those both inside and outside. Again, trying to give students an opportunity to earn some dollars with us, but more importantly, learn the skills they can then take when they leave Roosevelt, and they're transferable right into a job as they leave us, or they can parlay that into some kind of education that might enhance their experiences. So,
Something bigger, yeah.
Chad, anything you'd add to that, or Assistant Superintendent, anything you'd add to?
What I'll add for Cooper ran the scoreboard at the football game this year. I would say now Cooper probably knows how to run better than anybody in our district. He puts the content on it and he runs it during events. He's always asking me for an updated schedule so he can out there to make sure that things are running. If you've also seen, we now have the marquee lit up and working now at the school. Cooper's already designed a bunch of artwork and things to go on that.
I think my question is, for both of these positions, it says there's a max of 60 hours. Or, is that 60 hours total for the contract, or is that?
A week?
Well, I'm sure it's not a week because these are students, but I was curious about
I
the
think
60
there
hours.
is, Michael, I don't know if you remember, I only remember loosely the legality, how many hours they can work over a period of time. Do you remember that?
I don't remember.
We try to get that information, so that's a question
I saw that too, and
I can answer.
Just out of curiosity, more than anything, that's a limitation for the entire length of their contract. That doesn't seem like very much, but it's not 60 hours a week because I don't work that much.
No,
So
No, that's work I'll do to try to get that
Just curious.
and get it out to you.
I mean, I think both positions are great. I'm excited to see how many other places we can get students involved and
Yep.
and pay them for their effort. Because if he's already doing the work, he should be paid a little bit. So
Yeah.
it's a great experience, but a few dollars never hurts. So,
Be great if we could get some CDL.
You're right.
Yeah,
Those 5th years, we can get them
Yeah.
licensed and driving buses. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve those 2 items, Cooper Myers student employment, and is it Jose?
It's Josue.
Josue
Yes.
Gonzalez's student employment.
Second.
We have a motion by myself, a second by Director Batur. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So those 2 are approved, and then I would enter a motion for the balance of the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda, the 2 contracts we already spoke about.
sorry.
I have a motion by Director Proctor, a second by Vice President Sassano to approve the balance of the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we have a consent agenda. We'll move on to our special business. First item is the RHS Arena scored.
President Wells, I could answer the question really quickly. I got a check on Mr. Rodriguez about the 60 hours.
Oh, okay.
And so the 60 hours is what they've budgeted for this semester. And these kids are seniors, so they'll be done in May.
Okay.
So it's really a pretty short amount of time. So,
But the intent would be to fill these positions then for the fall.
yes,
Would they still be to the 60 hours per semester?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I think that's just what
Just curious.
is the current budgeted amount.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Let me take it or?
Yeah, no, I don't know anything, so.
I know you had a chance to, in the session 2 weeks ago when I was absent, and thank you for the grace with that. I know that Mr. Everest was able to talk a little about the scoreboard proposal and some of his thinking as we look toward, I think, adding something that was talked about early on. And from my perspective, something that we've talked to donors from the beginning about having inside-outside opportunity. I think he's taken some feedback. I think we also had a conversation about a little update, and would ask tonight if you're prepared for you to go through and have a conversation and take action so that we can get the ball rolling on making sure that's ready to roll July 1. If you're in favor of, with that, I'm gonna turn over to Mr. Everest.
All right, thank you, Superintendent Mueller. If we look at the second slide, just some follow-up from the work session that Superintendent Nielsen mentioned 2 weeks ago. The interest rate on the financing proposal was 7.12%, is what that worked out to. And then again, just real quick, equipment cost of $147,000, almost $21,000 in financing costs, total cost of $168,000 for a 5-year term, annual lease payment of $33,647. Just to review that, and then we also discussed a plan to internally finance the scoreboard instead of financing it, at the 7.12%. So if we could go to the next slide. I basically came up with a 6-step plan to internally finance the scoreboard. Step number 1 would happen next fiscal year, so the 24-25 school year. Purchase a scoreboard out of our capital reserve fund. Step number 2 would happen the following year in 25-26, where we would transfer $29,460 from general fund to capital reserve fund, and that amount would be roughly the amount of the CTE reimbursement that we would generate from the state with the purchase of that $107,000 piece of equipment. That's, that's 20%. Our CTE reimbursement is around 20%. So, just kind of using those rough numbers. So for the first year to transfer that 29,000 from general fund, which is where our CTE reimbursement is deposited into, transfer that amount out into our capital reserve fund to begin replenishing that that we paid for the scoreboard. And then steps 3 through 6 would be in the subsequent years, 26, 27, 27, 28, 28, 29, 29, 30, where we would transfer the same amount of money from student activities to capital reserve fund. Student activities is where the sponsorship payments for the scoreboard are deposited into, and so it just be a transfer from student activity fund into capital reserve fund over the 4 subsequent years to replenish the purchase price of the scoreboard. So that's kind of the financing, the internal financing piece of it, where we would save, almost $21,000 in finance costs over the course of the 5-year term of the original lease. And then,
unless we decided to charge 3.56 on the remit, I mean, just.
And then in any years, while the stadium and arena scoreboards are currently being paid off, any surplus funds from the sponsorships would be transferred into HS Athletics. Looking at the next slide. So that was kind of the plan that I came up with, and then here's some things that we definitely don't need to decide tonight, but these are some things that Lieutenant Nielsen and I kind of came up with in our discussion that things that we'll take a look at in the future, as we kind of wind down the purchasing of these scoreboards, and when they actually become more revenue, producing for the district. How are excess funds from sponsorships to be utilized when both scoreboards paid off? One thing that we will want to look at is how much would be dedicated each year for the eventual replacement of this equipment. And how should excess funds be distributed each year between our district operated schools? And I know the board has discussed, kind of some, vague, some ideas around how to do that. Definitely something that, we'll want to nail down and, after 4 or 5 years, when both of them are paid off. Another topic is, should new sponsorship agreements include both stadium and arena scoreboards for one price? Would you want to have separate sponsorship program pricing for the stadium scoreboard and the arena scoreboard? Would we want to offer some type of a disc pricing if a sponsor wanted to sponsor both awards? These are kind of some things that we'll need. This actually we'll probably want to talk about sooner than 5 years, because we'll be getting the new, if we're approved, we'll be getting the new scoreboard. But this is something definitely in the future, as we wind down our existing sponsorship agreements, how we want that to look going into the future to kind of maximize our investment in this equipment.
Can I ask you a question on it?
Yes.
So we're selling sponsorships to pay up, and those sponsors, when we sell one, are we telling you that is going towards the scoreboard? Like what? But then we're saying we're dedicating that stuff to equipment replacement, or are we putting that towards our scoreboards?
So it kind of would be both. In the initial phase where we are, paying off the purchase of those boards, most of the sponsorship money will be going to pay back, either through the lease payment.
All of it be going to it if we're selling it for? If we're selling sponsors to pay off the board, shouldn't all that money go to the cost?
Well, in some years there's a relatively small surplus that would be generated, but most of the sponsorship payments each year go to the financing component of that. Is that your question?
I mean, kind of. So it would go towards that 29,000 we're taking out of the capital reserve fund. So maybe that 29,000 would be less, but how can we sell a sponsorship and use the money for something else?
I think the sponsorship is sold to the athletic program.
It's just to the
To
program
the
instead?
program, and the program is paying that equipment.
Is that how it's worded?
It's not specific, it's not specifically to the financing of it, it's for support of RHS
So it's
athletics,
worded-
RHS.
okay.
Well, and it's what we're selling is advertising.
Right, but we're making sure it's allocated properly and we're not just selling it to pay a scoreboard and then using it elsewhere. It's sold as you're supporting the athletic program, period. Like
Yes.
that? Okay, all right, that was the question. That makes
And I
sense.
think that's one of the reasons, Amy, that we, and I came in at the tail end, I think, of the big one. But that's, I think part of your question is a good one, right? You could take everything that comes in and pay the boards off as fast as possible. One of the challenges you have in doing that is there's the people that are helping sponsor, they also want to see some of the benefits to athletics, so
Oh,
that's
yeah,
some of the
for sure.
incentive. So Michael's come up with a way, I think, to help us pay this one off using internal money and paying interest for it over the 4 years, the same 4 years that was already planned to pay off the other one, which
And
should
then
allow us some access.
still seeing some immediate benefits like
Yes.
equipment and
Yep.
things like that. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
But the discussion that we need to have with that, on that decisions is, and this is a larger discussion, not just gonna be limited to scoreboards, it's gonna be limited, or it's gonna be encompassing of everything in the district, right? Is what does our capital renewal look like? And this falls under capital renewal to some extent, so, we're gonna need to set some money aside so that a future board or future school administration has money to say, okay, this board is, they're saying 20-year life on these things, I think, right? But at least it will have some money set aside so it's not an emergency. But the other piece to this is, because these will be developing revenue for those programs, we do run into this issue where, like, the middle school doesn't have this opportunity to generate funds for their athletic programs or their art programs. Likewise, even in Roosevelt, this wouldn't necessarily always be for athletics, it could be for the arts. When we even get down to the elementary school level, they surely don't have this same opportunity to. And so one of the things we want to try to figure out is how do we make sure that the revenue is being shared across the district in a way that the elementary school programs are getting some benefit out of it. Obviously the lion's share is going to go to the school that hosts the device. But as far as the sponsorship agreements, I think you guys have done a fantastic job with that, and I don't see there's any reason for the board to get involved with that other than anything that we would need from Michael.
There is one part on there that, so the prospectus, when it came out, and this is, I always say BC, before Chad, when it came out, that the agreements that came out from Daktronics and from the district at the time were that sponsorships were for both boards. So if we are going to say, excuse me, that, we're gonna add more to the indoor, that's fine, but I would say let's, bring in the group that's already on the football scoreboard, and they automatically are on the indoor school board, kind of grandfather them in.
Yeah, and any new ones, and I think that's the work we gotta do, and that's the piece. I do think there's a couple pieces that we'll bring back to the board to make sure you have some knowledge before the end of, I'd say, the fiscal year. A fiscal year? Fiscal year. Physically, a long ways away yet, but physically, not so far away. And that would be how we might start thinking about, once we have both, what new opportunities there are. How do we expand opportunities for people that are on there as the businesses around us continue to grow? We're gonna have new large businesses to the west of us, that we'd love to give opportunities to be a part of it too. So I think that's part of it. And then for us to start the conversation about how do we see revenues down the road? And what do we see from this? The other piece I do want to put in the room and just publicly recognize is the connection of this to what Cooper's doing. The scoreboard we purchase here, because it's not just a scoreboard for the athletic, it actually is part of our CTE programming. And so it will recoup about 20% of what we spend on it will be reimbursed to the district after we pay. So in that, we're not going to buy this until the 25 school year. So 24, 25. So we'll get reimbursement all year. So essentially, one of those whole payments will be in reimbursement back from the CTA funds at the state to say thank you for this expenditure on increasing CTE experiences for students. And I think that's important, and part of what you already did as a board with the outside one, this just expands those opportunities for kids. And hopefully we have more than one Cooper going forward. Maybe a Cooper experience than a Cooper in training, or multiple, I don't know, but that's exciting, I think, to think about, and all comes with a benefit to the district.
We have to call that job a Cooper now.
The Cooper.
No, I was gonna say the same thing, Superintendent, that this isn't, we're talking about athletic scoreboard that goes in the arena, on the field, but this is an opportunity for a lot of our students and not just our athletes.
Yeah,
that's right.
So I want to make sure that is out there.
Yeah, and that's the reason we went back to the whole reason for the scoreboards is you have a lot of the sports teams all fundraise, right? Then you have the color guard, the winter guard, the band and stuff. And then them to have to fundraise doing the same thing everybody else does.
After they've done.
After, I would like to be able to, once we start getting the revenue, saying, okay, you're going to get this much every year, so you don't have to worry about fundraising. There's a lot of those smaller groups that just aren't getting the funding they need, so it would be nice for us to be able to help them out.
And I think you said that, Superintendent, but that's one thing I want to see down the road is, I don't think we need to decide the sponsorships, what they are, how much, all those kind of things, but I'm just curious what those levels are going to look like. And we talked about this in our last meeting. I don't want to preclude us from saying we have 4 gold level sponsorships. I don't know what it is. And we have 10 new businesses coming into Ledge Rock, and all of them want sponsorships. So we only have 4, or we increase the price a little bit. So I would like to, when it's decided, I would like to see what those are, just so we're all kind of on the same page.
Yeah,
What those are.
cool to see that, for sure.
And I like this idea. We talked a little bit about this last week. I like this idea of financing it in-house.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I joke about us taking 3, 5, 6 to, we're just taking half of what you were going to pay before. But yeah, if we don't have to pay extra interest, it's probably better in our.
Saving $22,000.
Yeah.
And you were talking about a student that was marketing that could step up and help market for advertising for his boards.
Brilliant. Jazz.
She's probably gonna send you a proposal.
She's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I definitely like financing it in-house.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we are in a good position right now. He's not making eye contact, but it doesn't seem. I mean, it's a lot, but it doesn't seem like a lot. But it actually is pretty huge that we're able to have this conversation where we can say, let's try to just keep this all in house, and because a lot of districts aren't as fortunate. So
I appreciate Mr. Everest and the work he does to get us to that spot.
Absolutely.
And also think you created about what this is.
Yeah. Sweet. All right. Well, we have some requested action, and I'm assuming this action is for the in-house financing option. Yeah. If somebody's interested in paying that extra interest.
Want to make a motion to authorize district administration to move forward with the RHS Arena scoreboard as presented.
I'll second. So a motion by Vice President Sassano, a second by myself to approve the, or to, approve to move forward with the,
Do we need to specify it's the internal thing?
it is, well, yeah, I think that's in the,
Okay, it is.
any other discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Diagana?
Amanda Proctor?
Yes.
Nate Fasano?
Yes.
Amy Musgrave?
Yes.
Michael Wales?
Yes. All right. Can you get this picture of me? Or get your phone out. I want to be the first thing.
We'll put it right up there. Thanks again.
I don't know if how many of you guys know Matt from Casby, but his their marketing guy was messing with him all week last week. So I have this one photo of him, and it's so funny because he has this big cheesy grin, but then the next photo they put up was of the Duke, John Wayne with that on, and I just can't get that picture of him with that big cheesy smile. All right, let's move on to our next item. This is just a discussion item, but this is our student involvement on the Board of Education.
I just open it up and say that, as I've had conversations with some of you in our one-on-ones about the opportunity of bringing on, likely, I think the conversation I'd love to see us have would be a proposal for two, a junior and a senior, being that we have Roosevelt School in the district, right, looking at a junior or a senior, but someone in training, someone that, so you sign up for a 2-year, this first go around would be a senior for a year, and then someone for a 2-year run. And then once you get that, and then you have somebody coming on for a 2-year run all the time, and so you got somebody that's been over a year, someone in training. What I'd love to hear from the board is this something you'd like staff to run with, a proposal, a plan for how we would do it and how structure, and there'd need to be some board policy around having present at board meetings, how we would do interviews, all things I think we could put together a plan board to look at in April. But tonight, I think, as I was talking to Michael and Nate in planning, was just trying to get a sense, what's our beliefs around whether that is the direction we want to go as a district or not. You've obviously heard my bias, but I'd love to hear from the board about whether this is something we should put some staff time into over the next month to bring back in April, or whether it's something we should push the pause button on.
I'll jump in. I think it's a really neat idea. All the logistics around how we select that student, does the student body elect person? I mean, we're all elected. Does the student body elect somebody? I don't know. But I think having student representation at this table, I think is really, really important, or could be really important. Having a voice on some of these decisions, when we're talking about scoreboard proposals and where to put the thing and, how we set up sponsorships and all that, to have some student input, I think, could be really exciting. I think it's something that we try not to overlook, but do sometimes, just because they're not here and we are not all in those buildings. So I think it's worth looking at personally. I think it could be a really neat thing. I know there's lots of considerations around policy and selection and all those kind of things, but I think it's a neat idea personally.
Yeah, I'm obviously with Scott. I have a bias to it. I'm excited. I'd like to see how this could work. As Nate said, I think student voice is always something that we always have to consider, and what better way to do that than have them with us. So I've been talking with Durango's school board. They do it. They have 2 students. And just to give you guys a sense of how they're doing it, similar fashion, they're picking students. One is an upperclassman, one a junior. So they have that. You get 2 years, but it's a constant revolving. So there's some continuity going. they don't vote. They are, I don't want to like set tiers, but they engage in the discussion. They can ask and direct staff for questions and answers, but they're not a vote. And I think a lot of that, there may actually be some laws against them because they're not elected by the public, but they can't actually make those kinds of decisions. But yeah, they participate all the way up into that vote. So they're providing discussion, they're providing questions, they're asking staff and giving staff direction when that's appropriate. It is a policy, so we do have some model policy that we could work with. But yeah, I think at the times the clock ticking on it, we might be a little behind the clock right now because we would want to do, and you brought up a good point. I didn't even think about that, having them elected
I literally thought
by the student body, but I think Drew appoints, so they do an interview process. They're pretty firm about participation. So the kid who's doing football and basketball and baseball and student council and ALA, they kind of discourage that kid from getting involved because they really want somebody who can put their folk here and not miss many meetings. So
in other districts, who does the selection process? Like you said, Durango, like who decides on the student?
The board does. So they open it up, they take applications,
Okay.
and then the board does interviews, and then they make their decision.
That's how Harrison does it too.
Would we give them some sort of structure on how they like get feedback from the rest of the body? Like how are they? Like if we're asking them to come and present to us, like are we giving them the opportunity during school days to hear from their peers? Or I'm not familiar with this at all.
Yeah, they would board docs, they would get the executive information that we get, so then they go back to their constituents as the student body and say, here's something we're going to be discussing. How do you guys feel? And then as we're sitting around the board here, they would chime in, give their feedback. They would be excluded when we got to the vote part.
Okay.
I can tell you, Wendy, talked to her, and she's the superintendent in Harrison. So she has a superintendent's advisory council that they're part of, and she does a little similar to the one-on-ones, right? So she meets with them and talks about some of the stuff, gets a sense from them of how they're doing. But same deal there. Early in the process, they didn't have a lot of applicants. Well, they still don't. She said now with the two ice there, they have about 12 applicants, but they're pretty strict also about who she talked about. The same just said, right? They don't want to have the person there that's all college credits. They're not on campus at all. And the person that's already in 12 things probably is not going to be able to show up on a Wednesday night every week. But there's some people that are truly passionate about the political science side of things, and those are that we heard from.
Those two girls we saw last week, I mean, they were all about policy.
Yeah, and they both talked about, one of the things they asked them last week was, how do you get feedback from your peers? And they talked about getting more comfortable with how they engage with their peers, and some formal kind of feedback stuff and some informal conversations. They talked about the learning to how do we get a broader perspective of perspectives than just the
group I'm with.
People I hang with at lunch. Right. And they talked about learning they had to go through to get more comfortable, asking people and trying to understand. And so that's part of the learning they'd have to do with us. Much like we do when we get on the board, right, is trying to figure out how do we gain the feedback and represent those people.
I think one thing, should this be something we decide to do, and just seeing those girls this past week, I think looking back, and it's kind of going back to what you were saying about Jennifer Borenson, I think we'll have the opportunity to look back on some of these students 4 or 5 years down the road and say, oh, I remember him or her when they applied for the board, and look at them now, Mr. Mayor or Congressman. And so, because we're giving them a chance to really do something impactful could shape the direction of where they're going with their lives. So
So are they gonna, like, direction, like, what we want to know from them? Like, it's pretty broad, like, inviting you to come and be involved on the board. But are we gonna give them some direction, like, what kind of things we want to hear from them? Like, our agenda, what do
Oh,
the
yeah.
students think of this? Just, are we?
yeah, there, and so
Yeah, I mean, they would be a part of the conversations, just like we try to engage with
That sounds pretty cool.
the board right
This
now.
is all brand new to me, so,
yeah.
yeah, that sounds.
I know,
great.
I don't know how Harris does it. Durango does so they like to do their interviews in April, make a selection May,
Mhm.
and then right as soon as school's out, they like to do like a 1 or 2 day training with the board members.
Okay.
Then they bring them back right before school starts, just kind of as a, I get it, you're a high schooler, you were doing summer things. Here's what we're gonna be. Yeah, a little refresher training. And then, yeah, then they're here with us.
Nice, okay.
Yeah, I think I have a couple of concerns that I think you kind of addressed is the expectation for these kids to do it all year long, I think is a lot. Especially over the summer and it's like that, like it's one thing for an adult to do, but a high schooler, I still want to be children
Sure.
and be able to like sleep in and not have to worry about it. And the second concern I have is we had talked, I can't remember in my brain whether it originated here or on DAC about having student representation at the DAC, and that never happened. And so I'm concerned that we have great intentions and our follow through is going to stink. Because if we couldn't do it on DAC, which is 4 meetings a school year, are we going to be able to successfully do it here? Because I don't want it something that we can't successfully at least test for a full year and then maybe continue.
Yeah, I think
I'm
that's-
worried about that
those
because
are
I think
fair.
that's not
We don't
up our side of
we don't
the,
have students on deck anymore?
We don't currently, we have in the past.
Yeah, we have in the past.
but it hasn't been consistent even since when I was on DAC, let alone through now on the board. There's not a consistency with the students at DAC and that voice there. And I'm concerned that if that follows through doesn't happen on DAC, I want to make sure it's here because I think if we're going to do something, we should do it well and not do it haphazardly or overly.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
it's just not fair for the students signing up for it.
And I think like Harrison and Durango, that part of it is that, I mean, they make that very clear in that application process that if you are, like, we expect, there's an expectation that you will be here every meeting. And if you can't, then you probably shouldn't apply for this. No, you know, you might be the greatest kid, but this is what we're looking for.
I mean, we do have queso.
That's right. I mean, that's the.
We do.
I
But,
think-
like, how do we make it interesting for them? Maybe. I mean, honestly, board meetings can be pretty.
Well, yeah, and
We all know that, but we need to.
And I don't know that we can any more than this. I mean, I can try to do more interpretive dance as part of my stuff,
Well,
but
I mean, could we maybe talk about maybe not making them come to everything like this and not in the summer, or like this would be
Sure,
interesting to them. They want to talk about the school, that really impacts them. If we're having a meeting that we're talking about things that really the students don't care about, maybe I can't think of what that would, maybe a personnel thing or something like that.
Well,
Just let them know, hey, you got an out tonight.
and
You don't need to be
clarify that they would definitely be out any.
Well, yeah,
any
I guess
personnel
that
stuff, but-
was a bad example, but
You know, and
That's
I
Like allowing them to have the permit to still be a child.
yeah, if that's the only thing we have on our agenda, like, hey, you guys don't need to show up. We're having an executive session and that's it.
sure.
So they don't need to come to
Right.
everything.
No, I think there's some room for that, and I can appreciate what both you guys are saying. And I feel that bit too, but I tell you what, and these 2 girls may have been unicorns that we saw, but they were the stuff they were excited about talking about. It was crazy. After that, almost every board member in that we sat with following that point said they kept going back to that, like, oh my God.
No, I would
think it actually
agree.
may make the board meeting more exciting.
It would, and I do know several kids actually that would really, really delight in having a part in this. So, but I do think maybe we could also have some grace in certain areas that you don't have to come to every single meeting. Check in with us if you think it's not a meeting that's applicable to the student body or something. I don't know.
I think that's fair. I do think Durango they have a curfew that like at
Okay.
8:30, those student board members are allowed to leave, so they're not. But we don't run.
You knock on wood right now.
I mean, we used to.
Yeah.
We don't anymore, but.
But it could, but I don't know.
I think
it's good.
what we're hearing is we need to make it useful for the students and interesting and a good use of their time,
Yeah.
and make sure that's built into the C. If this is the way we decide to go, because we're not making decisions tonight.
Right.
We're just investigating
But as we
possibilities.
think about it,
Yeah,
and how
absolutely.
we want to frame it and we want to sell it.
I also think that if we build a process and we go through some kind of review, right? Or we look at, or we don't get any applicants, it's like any other position we don't have the right applicant for, we don't bring anybody on. I think what we'll find with school districts that do it, when you find those individuals that they want to be engaged in be an advocate for whatever is driving them, they may tell us they want to hear, because they may feel like that's the way they're making a difference. So those two girls last week, my guess is you have to drive them out at 8:30 because they want to stay.
They were.
They were so into the role they're playing to make a difference in the world, and the board is the way they're doing that right now. We may find that in opening it up and going for it. We may not have that. But I think if we build a process, we at least can see.
Yeah.
I'm here to do that.
Yeah, I like the idea of it. I like the idea of maybe talking to the kids that are already involved in the student political body. What they think about it, just getting some input, and still let them be kids and see if we can grow there.
Okay.
And I think it's at least worth investigating.
Yeah.
Whether we do it or not is a different conversation, but I think it's at least worth putting some time into.
Yes,
I agree.
Why do you get those ribbons on the end of the sticks? Do some fancy stuff.
You can, because I can't.
I've got bow staff skills. All right. Any other discussion? We're almost there. The home stretch. Do we have any citizen comments on all topics? Rachel Terry. If you would, just state your name and address for the record.
Okay, it's Rachel Terry, and I live at 16 Lindenwood Circle in Johnstown, Colorado. And thank you, Superintendent and the board, for letting me speak for a moment. Something came to light last week as parents, we were all together, and a situation came to light. And I just want to make sure you guys know about it. I know it's probably nothing we can discuss here, but Miss Marissa is a para in the preschool at Elwell, and she received, she was supposed to be on the agenda tonight, and her name was taken off an hour and a half before this meeting began. I just thought I still wanted to make sure you guys knew about this issue, and I understand that it is a personal issue because it has to do with an employee, but I also feel like this includes a whole classroom of kids, which makes it a community issue as well. And so anyway, the situation was this reader came into the classroom, and this is all, I have to say, I was not there. This is hearsay. This is what, but I want you guys to know what other parents are hearing and what they are hearing.
So real quick, Ms. Terry, I would caution you to be careful with bringing hearsay into a public meeting, because this is going on the record.
Yes.
You are going record as stating this, so.
Yes, this is what I have learned, and
Okay.
this is what I just want the board to be aware of.
So, and I just want to caution you, would you feel more comfortable talking to somebody from our administration about this as opposed to going, because you become liable at that point
Oh, liable?
for anything. I mean, you could be legally liable for something that you say represent that harm. That's why we don't talk about personnel issues in
I
public.
get that, yes. I also think that this is one of those situations where I don't want to see it on the rug because it needs to be talked. So I don't know. You tell what's the best to do.
I mean, I'm a risk averse guy, so
Yes.
I mean, there's a room full of people who
Yeah, I'm happy to set a meeting up and talk about it.
Okay.
Be helpful.
Good work.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
And I actually had coffee with Marissa today.
Oh, good, good.
So.
So then we just want to make sure people are aware.
I'm aware. I also told to email the entire board. She's having trouble getting her email to go through.
Okay.
But yeah, we're aware.
Okay.
I'm aware.
All right. And you'll let them be aware, and I can talk. Yeah. Okay.
And
then I won't get myself in trouble.
Definitely, I would say set up a meeting with Scott.
Okay.
And that's an issue.
That's his wheelhouse.
Jurisdiction.
Ours, yeah. Which
Yeah.
is,
And I had an idea really quick, is when you guys were talking about the students helping, why don't you make 2 sets of students? And so they only have to come once a month. And they could go every other time. Just a thought. But thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Any other, what's the line? Items deemed necessary, board?
Yeah, I had a couple questions.
Okay.
I wanted to follow up to our last meeting regarding receiving talking points and when we'll be receiving those. Do we have an ETA on that?
Yeah. Hoping to do today. Time gotta wait for my session.
Okay.
I think they're ready. It's just a matter of one more look over and get them out to you.
Okay. And then I wanted to say in the general broad meeting that I am really a big advocate and proponent of exploring bringing custodial services in-house. I want to make sure that we heard in the work session that staff is loosely doing it, but I want to make sure, like, I'm a proponent of that. I would like to see a formal proposal of custodial being brought in-house. I think there's a lot about that.
Yeah. Ditto. I think we need to look at all of our options. I hope things get better after our conversation tonight in the near term, but long term, we need to look at all of our options. So I agree.
Okay, anything else?
Appreciate you saying that, and that work is, that proposal, I think we'll have a proposal with that as part of it when we come back in April and talk about it, partly because we started looking at the dollars and cents to get the things we think we need to take care of our employees. It's better for us to do it ourselves. It will create work. We'll have to do the turnover and all that stuff, but we also get to do the work. So we get to filter in the climate with our people. So appreciate you voicing that.
Okay. We'll go ahead and adjourn at 8:24. Thank you, guys.